Hey Scream Team, I wanted to talk with you about the role that you might play if you're working one of the sign-in stations. So the sign-in stations will be around the Early College High School, the Fusion Room, which is essentially where the Horror Film Fest is, and a lot of the traffic that comes from the Horror Fest will come over to the haunted house. So there'll be one sign-in station inside the SCCT building. There'll also be several sign-in stations along the path leading up to SCLC. So these sign-in stations are really important because, first of all, they let us keep track of who's going to actually be entering the haunted house. But we also get things like their ticket, which everybody needs for entry. So let me explain a little bit. The first thing that will be on your table is a sign-in sheet. It's literally going to be just a printed sign-in sheet. There'll be lots and lots of copies. You can have students fill it out in pencil. As they do so, check things like their handwriting. All we really need here is their student name. They can print it, their email, and their ID. Okay? Once they have done that, the next thing that you're going to give them is this packet. The packet is going to include 3 different things that'll all be stapled together. The haunted house disclaimer, the talent release form, and an image release form. So let me tell you a little bit about each one of these. The haunted house disclaimer is the same type of disclaimer anybody would sign when they go through a haunted house. It is essentially a warning. It tells them about the different routes. It tries to give them a little bit of an idea if they're a visitor, what they're going to get themselves into, essentially. But it's also essential because it explains the different parts of the haunted house. Stapled on the disclaimer, what you'll see are the tickets. Okay, so each one of these on this packet will have 2 tickets stapled onto it. The top one is for the butcher shop. The bottom one is for the haunted forest. Now notice these 2 things look different on purpose. That way we can tell them apart. Lots of people will simply say that they're going to go through one area. And so you want to sort of let them know, make them actually read this. And I'll show you at the end what you're going to do with the ticket. So essentially, they're going to read the disclaimer. And they have to do a little bit of signing, obviously. So once they understand the risks of going through the haunted house, they're going to put their name and ID and signature here. This is a form that we are going to keep. This is essentially their agreement for abiding by all the rules and directions of the haunted house. Now what you'll see at the bottom is this really big thing that says make sure to rip off your ticket and keep it with you. Because that little ticket from the front is how they're going to get into the parts of the haunted house. The second thing that's going to be in the packet is a talent release form. The talent release form is essentially for the film club and for Professor Molly Floyd's students because, thankfully, they're going to be filming for us, which means anytime any one of the people enters or visits the haunted house, it means they could be filmed, and they need to know this, and that's why we call it a talent release. This is also the same form that we will have performers sign because, obviously, they will also be in any sort of filming that's done. Most of the talent release form will be filled out. And for instance, it has the name of the producer, the director. None of that is us. All of that is Film Club, and they will have that filled out for us. But what the student needs to do is essentially look at the top part of it and make sure that they agree. It essentially grants them rights to be able to do whatever they want to do with the film that they've done through the haunted house. Okay? And on the second page, kind of like the first, you get the picture here, they're going to be signing this, okay? Remember that there are going to be some kids, families that are going to go through the haunted house, so it's especially important. If you notice that it's a family, you want to make sure that they sign the parent or guardian and get the signature of the parent or guardian. So remember, even if they're not a TCC student, they may be featured in the film, and that person has the right to decide whether or not they want their child or themselves filmed. The last thing you may have seen before if you've done any other event at TCC, this is the TCC image release form. This is essentially for photographs. And what the student essentially needs to do, again, is sign this, okay? They're going to be giving us their name. They're going to be giving us their signature. And what we also do is put down a little bit of a description and whether or not they're a TCC student. The description part is a little strange. All you really want to think about is something identifiable that the person is wearing so that we can possibly identify them in photographs. The photographs might be used for haunted house advertising for the following year for the Writing Center. It might be used for film club or any of Ms. Floyd's film students. And it may just be used in any other thing that TCC does. And so that's why it's essential for us to get their names and to make sure we can also recognize them in photographs. Most of the students and most of the families going to an event like this understand that something like that will take place, but there may be a few that aren't. Last year, there were only a few people who did not want their pictures taken, and it was very simple to sort of communicate this. We essentially told them where the pictures were going to be taken and asked them to avoid that area. It was super simple, okay? Once everybody has signed this, again, this is just going to be in a packet like this, all of these little things. Essentially, what you're going to have them do, ask them which part of the haunted house they're going through and have them rip off their tickets. Make sure you explain that one is for the butcher shop and one is for the haunted forest. You can tell them to keep them with them. If they are 100% positive that they're not going to go through the family section, you can even take that ticket back or have them throw it away. But you want to remind them if they aren't sure. A lot of people ended up going through both parts last time, even if they didn't have children. And so you want to tell them that each place has a separate ticket. The other thing, the final thing that you'll want to make sure that they understand before they walk away from their table is make sure that they understand where they're going. Remember that there are two different lines for the haunted house. The haunted forest family area, people will enter the front of the SCLC building. There will be signage, but you kind of want to get them going in the right direction so they get in the right line. Obviously, there'll be a waiting line, so you want to make sure they go to where they need to go. And again, the butcher shop, people will enter from the back of the SCLC building. So that's really all you need to do at that point. You keep the packet because it has all of the signatures. Make sure they rip off their tickets and send them on their way. Hopefully you guys will want to work this area. This is a really important area for us, and it's essential to get everybody to the haunted house. Thanks, guys.